if there's anything I've realized in this journey of my own restoration and also in working with guys, it's that uh, recovery is a very, very hard endeavor to take on. So I've asked and guys have asked, man, what can sustain me? What can fuel me throughout that year-long process of going through recovery? And there really is one central aspect that really lifts us up and fuels us throughout that process. And we're going to talk about that
Welcome
today.
back to the Restoration Soul Care Podcast. My name is Michael Camber, and as always, I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Nicholas Buddha. Nick, say hi.
How's it going, everybody?
Oh, man. Uh,
It's been
this
a
is like the
morning,
fourth,
Michael. It's okay.
yeah, this is our fourth intro. Force take. Force take. Gosh, it's going to be a slog. I can't even say words right. Um, hey, real quick, do us a favor. If you're watching this on YouTube, we're trying to grow this channel so that we can have as big of an impact as we possibly can on guys, well, men, women, family, it doesn't matter. People who are trying to overcome a pornography addiction. If you could, smash that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment if this is helpful or if you have a question. That would mean a lot to us. Today, Nick, we are finally hitting part 4 of our community series to wrap this
Yes.
up. And frankly, I'm really excited about this. When we taught this in our Thursday night group, I thought it was great. I thought it was really impactful. I think it made a lot of sense. And I don't think it's something that gets talked about enough in the recovery space. So I'm glad to be spending an entire episode talking about it.
Yeah, and big picture, I think when we talk about doing recovery and community, I've loved this series as a whole because it's put a lot more tangible markers on what community should look like, even from day to day or week to week. But today, too, we're going to talk about what's probably or what should be the fuel of all of it. And when it's lacking, uh, it not only affects our relational life, it affects our whole recovery trajectory. And I don't want to be over dramatic here, but we're going to be talking today about celebration. And that if you don't celebrate throughout your recovery journey, uh, I can pretty much guarantee you won't make progress forward.
And that makes a lot of sense when we only focus on maybe sort of the I don't want to paint it as negative, because if you're doing the work, it might feel negative, but it's not negative. It's good stuff. But if that's all we focus on, when we relapse, when we fall short, when we don't measure up, if that is the perpetual topic of conversation in this journey, you're gonna start feeling down about it. You're not gonna build any sort of resilience about moving toward continuing to stay in the game, moving toward hope and healing.
Let's be honest here. I think from our own stories and now getting to work from guys, we've repeatedly heard the comment, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. And that's coming from people when they finally get it, when they finally get the focus, the consistency, the energy it takes to be faithful with your recovery process. It is super hard work. And so, I mean, the analogy would be imagine having a task that's going to take years to complete, and you never stop to appreciate why you're doing it in the first place, the steps you're taking, and who you're doing it with. Like, you're probably not going to complete that task because it's just going to be like, oh, this is miserable.
Yeah.
But what we're saying too for guys and girls out there, when you commit to recovery, you are meant to be fueled by joy. And that may sound really cheesy, or I don't know what it may sound like. It doesn't matter. But I think there's a principle in life, in God's design, that our hearts were meant to be fueled by goodness and joy. And we do that through this thing we call celebration. Well, Michael, we have a third guest today. It's Jackson Cornelius Richard Buddha. So he knows his name.
Is that actually his name?
Oh, yeah. We couldn't
Where's
decide on
Cornelius?
the middle.
Is Cornelius a family name?
No, actually, I don't know where Richard came from either, but it was like, what are the most ridiculous names that we could put with Jackson?
It's up there.
And no, Jax is not a therapy dog. He needs to be in therapy. So
Yeah.
that's
He
just,
creates opportunity for other people to go to therapy.
yeah. And our next side project, we've talked about this for years, but cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah, DBT.
It's for dogs. So we're talking about celebration today and how it relates to community if I could, let me start meta here, big picture. Some of the framework that we've talked about this principle is not just in recovery, but it's wrapped up in how God has designed us in his image, and as his creatures of goodness and beauty. Let me say it that way. One passage I love to go to is Ecclesiastes 3, written by Solomon, one of the wisest dude, and what he's doing in his life is reflecting on these big picture questions, like what am I actually here for? What's the meaning of life? What am I driven by? What's going to actually satisfy me? One of the statements that I think is really telling in this book, he says this. This is verse 11. He says, God has made everything beautiful in its own time. He has planted eternity in the human heart. But even so, people can't see the whole scope of God's work from beginning to end. So as a result of that, I've
So,
concluded yes, important word. I've concluded there's nothing better than to be, this translation says, happy and enjoy ourselves as long as we can. So in other words, even in this broken world, uh, God has hardwired us for eternity. And obviously, some of what that means is we are hardwired to be satisfied in who God is. I think people like John Piper have done a really good job articulating that. Or I think of the old Westminster Confession, like the chief end of man is it glorify God and enjoy him forever, I think is
yeah,
the wording. But that's hard in this broken world, right?
yeah,
So the conclusion of Solomon is what we need to do in the meantime, day by day, is to find focus on the things that are good, things that are truly that resemble God's presence and his work in the midst of a sinful world, and enjoy them, and I would use the word celebrate them. Just to kind of flesh that out more than just my own interpretation, I think it's so interesting in the design of Israel that one of the main things that God commanded them to do, being his people and representing him, was they had mandatory times of celebration. These festivals and feasts, these holy days.
yeah,
And really, they weren't, if you look at them, they weren't just religious ritual worship services. They were actually they were a party. They had tons of food. They had a full excuse to take off the week from work. Um, they were hanging out with close community. I mean, I would have loved to be a part of some of these things. And again, at the bottom line of all these festivals, they did two things. They, in the midst of work, in the midst of the grind of life, they caused the people of Israel to stop and meditate on a specific either aspect of who God is or how he's worked. I think of like the festival or the feast. No, I'm sorry, the festival booths, where they go out and sleep in these little huts. It's still kind of a party, but they're remembering that God was faithful to them as they traveled and made it to the promised land. So they would
yeah,
celebrate that. Other examples too. And then you can even fast forward to the New Testament. Like we have a reoccurring, what should be a celebration regularly as Christians. I was going to say in my church home, we do it every week, but it's the Lord's Supper. It's communion. And we've kind of boiled it down to a very like 5 minute thing. But originally, when that was done in the church, it was a meal. And people even called it the love feast because basically it was like, let's celebrate Christ and what he has done for us. Let's pause in the meal and remember his sacrificial death and his resurrection. But let's eat and enjoy. And that brings us to the other thing it did. It didn't just remember or reflect on something about who God is or what he's done. It drew us together in community. So like I'm not doing this celebration in isolation. I'm doing it with others who are calling things out that maybe I've missed. And honestly, I think this is true in all of life. When we want to celebrate something, we're able to enjoy that better when it's with other people. We have a monthly time that we get together. Yeah, when I think about our once a month meals together, we don't do a big, huge, we don't do our accountability checklist. We don't do our like any specific intentional rhythm. Like really the point is enjoyment. Tell me about this, Michael. As you've worked with guys and we're talking about the rhythm of celebration, have you worked with guys who have captured that idea that God has designed us to stop and to celebrate throughout the recovery journey? And what have you noticed, either positively or negatively, in guys who have tried to continue to work through recovery and this either has or hasn't been a part of or an ingredient in their recovery.
It's hard. You made a comment earlier about making progress in their recovery journey can be a years long process at times, right? 2 to 5 years. I think that when guys are first coming out of this and trying to start doing some of the stabilizing work, like we talked about last night, I think that there's relief in pursuing that, but I don't think that they're fully living into like, how do I experience joy right now? Because the reality is if they're married, when they're home with their spouse, like they're just sitting in pain, they're sitting in discomfort. So there's not a ton of joy to be had there. Well, at least that's their experience. And to be clear, depending on where you're at in that journey, the pursuit of joy in the moment might not be the priority, and that's okay. But I think it's helpful to have an eye toward that, to know that that's what's coming, right? Because if you do, that will help serve as motivation to continue moving toward that, right? And even thinking about, like Scripture says, like Jesus on his way to the cross was not an incredibly like joyful moment. He was in pain. He said he was so stressed out that he sweat drops of blood. But I think it's Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul says this, but for the joy set before him, right? Sunday's coming. There's joy on the other side of the cross. I'm after that.
You're right. That joy was still present, even though it wasn't like, hey, this is awesome. But
Right.
there was something he carried with him. And I would even argue that joy that was that was held in him uh, was planted and secured by a lot of previous rhythms and moments where Jesus stopped and fueled it with his disciples. Could be around a dinner table. It could have been on the way to something. And a lot of times we don't get to read about those probably intimate, special moments. I think one of them that come to the top of my mind that we do have in Scripture is in the Gospel of John. Jesus' first miracle was at a wedding. Like Jesus, who knew the importance of his limited time on earth and the mission he had and all that he needed to do, he deemed it worthy to attend a party and be like, hey, this is important. And it wasn't just for, I don't think, the purpose of, I know I'm going to do a miracle here and this is going to set a trajectory and blah, blah, blah. Like, I think Jesus was also teaching his disciples, like, be present here. Like, marriage is something that God's created, and I could go off on that trajectory. But for the sake of the analogy here, this is important to be here and to enjoy this and to be present with people. And how much more, like you said, in something as huge as seeking freedom and restoration in our soul, how much more important is it to stop throughout the way to be like, man, there's some good things happening here, and God is present here, and I'm not alone here. I'm just doubling down, tripling down on this. Think about even how we've done hard things in Western culture. If you notice, it is very influenced by psychology, but you'll notice there's always a reward effect, or not a reward. There's a celebration effect. So, like, even think about as your kids make their way through school, there's these constant little like certificates they earn. There's these parent nights, and they call students out, and it's like, okay, we do it there. We even do it vocationally. Like, we have KPIs and we have things at our work that we've hit, and we celebrate and we stop. Like, hey, we're gonna have a business lunch because we're gonna celebrate what we've done. So we do it in all these other spaces. And for some reason, when we take on maybe one of the most special, the most valuable things we could do, which is seeking freedom for our soul, it's like we approach that space with like, well, I'm just gonna drudge through it. Like,
Yeah.
and I hope it's gonna go. One community I've really admired in this space is 12-step groups.
Yeah.
A lot of them use the concept of medallions or coins. Uh,
Yeah.
and that's among many other things they do, but it's a tangible thing that they said, hey, the work you've done so far, I know you're not all the way, but the work you've done so far is huge. And so being able to carry a 30-day sobriety coin for somebody in 12 steps, man, that's so life-giving and significant. And even walking with people on that journey, like, it's opened my eyes again to how instrumental this rhythm is.
Yeah. I got lost when I was talking a minute ago. That makes so much sense, and I want to piggyback on what you just said, because if the reality is early on in this journey, like, we're looking for joy, and if At home with my spouse, like if that's where the pain epicenter is, and there's not a ton of joy to be experienced there right now, even though you may have had a week, 2 weeks, 6 weeks of sobriety, and maybe your wife's not in a place where she can like celebrate that with you. That's okay. But the question is, well, where do you get it? Where can you go to celebrate? And I think that's,
Mm,
why we're doing this series. Community, right? It's not just that you
yeah.
have one relationship for the rest of your life, though that might be it is your primary relationship. Again, God's plan A for us is the church. It's a people group, a community of believers in Christ. That's where we can take the celebration, which is why the 12-step group is so important, which is why the restoration group that we lead is so important, or a men's group. Any group that your church probably facilitates for men to show up and tell the truth about themselves wherever they're at on the recovery journey, so that we can encourage one another, build each other up, but also for the sake of celebrating. Great,
Yeah.
like sobriety is not everything, like we talk about that, but like, good grief, if for the majority of your life you haven't been able to go 2 days without using pornography and you go 2 weeks, that's a big freaking deal. And we got
Yeah.
to celebrate that.
Yeah. My mentor, when I was early on in groups years ago, he was really he was a big encourager too. He's a big burly guy and he looked like Santa Claus and Bert.
Bert.
And he's like, I remember we used to meet at Panera Bread uh, early every week for our group. And he normally would bring encouragement and really call us up, and because he was trying to set the pace for joy. And one week he just had it. He's like, dude, I gotta tell you guys, y'all suck at celebrating. I was like, oof, okay. But it stuck with me all these years later. I'm like, okay, like Bert saw it as you need this. Like you really
Yeah.
need this together as guys, because we'd come in every week with our heads down and we would never appreciate the steps we were taking. But I love the statement you made earlier. And man, I would back you up and say we have a need for celebration. Like we have a human need for celebration, and we cannot do it outside of community. Like I would say there is a certain aspect of individual joy. I get that. But if we're talking about celebration in our growth, in our trajectory in this life, it has to be done in community. I'm so glad
Yeah.
you pointed that out. Yeah, who wants a birthday party where you're the only one showing up? Come on now.
Not me. And I'm pretty introverted.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
Well, I think we made the point. Like we're designed for it. We need it in the recovery journey. I think it might be helpful for the rest of our time together to actually talk about practical, possible ways that we can practice this rhythm in community.
yeah.
Um, we've talked about a few, but let me start with one, and then I'll throw one on to you if you have another idea of one of the things, practical things that we highlight. Here's what I'd say, and I actually base this idea off scripture, but here's what I'd say for recovery and community. Have milestone markers. So whether you're leading a group or whether you're just participating in a group, maybe come up with ideas of something together across your community that you will, when a person meets this marker, I guess I want to be general with this, but like demonstrates could be a length of sobriety. It could be even just a practice of like we've had consistent honesty. I don't know, whatever it may be. When there's a definable marker to say this is good, this is something really valuable, this is something that God is at work in, identify it, and then choose as a group to commit to celebrate it in a certain way. Again, the 12 step coins is just an example of a way you could do that. But what I like about that example is it's actually something tangible.
Yeah.
So like even in a recovery group, I think whether you use a coin or something different, you can be creative, come up with your own thing, something that's meaningful, where there's a tangible experiential celebration of that marker of growth or that marker of recovery. It could be like, hey, we're all gonna once so and so, or we have a couple people that meet this mark, we're gonna go out to eat, or we're gonna go do this thing together, go watch a sports game together, or something. Like I don't know, it could be something super simple like that, or you could have items that you give out, or a certain, I don't want to use the word ceremony, but a certain practice that you do to really stop and honor it in that moment. So I encourage mile markers. I mean, the very low hanging fruit of that, yes, is certain levels of continued sobriety, but also in the sexual addiction recovery space, there are key things like If you're married, when you walk through a full disclosure, that's a really hard process in this. Also, when you complete certain things like identifying, taking inventory of the things that are most struggle, and then identifying your boundaries and your steps towards fleeing from these things, like those are concrete things that are going to be part of everybody's recovery. And I think they should be celebrated when they're completed for anybody walking through it.
I agree. It's totally necessary. And I think again, this is all over Scripture. One of my favorite hymns that I grew up with was gosh, I'm spacing on the name right now. This is embarrassing.
Give me a phrase. I might be able to.
Anyway, well, the phrase from the song is, "Here I raise my Ebenezer, hither by thy help to come, and I hope
Come thou fount.
come thou fount." That's it. But I remember singing that all my entire childhood, and going, "What the heck is an Ebenezer?" And I just attributed it to the first name of Scrooge.
I know it's from
But
Christmas Carol.
even then, yeah, from the Christmas Carol. But like, I looked that up one time, and it's like a monument. It's like setting up a monument to remember a thing. Like it's a milestone marker, exactly. So right, like even thinking about what that means in the Christmas Carol, like Ebenezer Scrooge in and of himself is a mile marker. Remember this, and don't do it. Right? Yeah, but that comes from the Old Testament, setting up an Ebenezer, setting up a monument to remember this place, this time, this thing, this season, and reflect and celebrate. Yeah, we did it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I think else. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to move on to the next one.
Please. Yeah, we could talk a lot about markers, but yeah, let's give other ideas too.
We got Sharpies, Expo, highlighters. So, that's dumb. Sabbath practices. Practices that we engage in routinely just for rest, just to take a break. And again, do this in community. Don't just do this by yourself, right? It's okay to go do things alone occasionally, but for the most part, like we want to experience these things in community. Instead of numbing out by yourself or just being alone and tending to yourself, like do it in community. Choose life-giving activities where you can invite others into that. So I would encourage you to be outdoors. So if it's like going on a walk, taking a hike, going fishing, I'm trying to think, like go to a concert together, go play a sport together, something, but get together, do something that is restful, relaxing, that can really just let you exhale and unplug for a minute.
Yeah, let me say for those who are listening and kind of being like, wait, what does Sabbath have to do with that? I think for Michael and I, our understanding of Sabbath is not just a 24-hour period, though it is that rhythm. But Sabbath is really this gift that God has given us to say it is good and necessary to take space to fill yourself with the things that give you joy and be okay with suspending the things that you have to do.
Yeah.
We call work.
Right.
So Sabbath, of course, yeah, it's going to happen weekly, but should practice Sabbath every day. You know, we should have moments of our day where we're stopping to have enjoyment, to unplug. And what you're saying, you tell me if I'm wrong here, is it's actually good to invite our community into those spaces.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me this, Michael, because I think you know this about me too. Like I probably I am more on the introverted side of personality wiring. So like I can have a craving, a disposition to like when I do have some Sabbath time, I want to do it by myself. But what would you say to someone like me that's like who could get it into a regular pattern of just like, hey, when I'm going to do something life-giving, I'm just going to do it on my own. What would you challenge or what would you say to someone like me in that space?
Yeah, oftentimes the fear is that I have to go meet with a group of people and do this big thing. And it doesn't have to be
Mm.
that. You know, your Sabbath exercise practice can just be with one other person. It could just be with a friend one time, and you don't have to do something grand. It can be something pretty low key. Come over and watch a movie with me. Hang out. Let's play a board game. You know, it doesn't have to be this grand thing that feels overwhelming to even try to plan. You know, especially if you get more than one person involved, there's like planning and people can't do it. So like it's complicated. But I'm a huge fan of like mastering my calendar. So even if I, you know, in 2 weeks may not feel like doing the thing, I'm gonna put it on my calendar and block off the time for it and plan and live my next week or 2 weeks as though that's actually going to happen. And if I get there and it's like, well, so and so's busy, I can't make that happen. Okay, well, I can pivot and do something else. But for the most part, like I'm going to take advantage of owning my time and owning my rest in the way that I need that. And so if I put it on the calendar, I'm not just talking about it. It's not just intention. It's like that's as concrete as it gets for me. Like if it's on my calendar, like I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, I always tell people too, whether in coaching or otherwise, like the things that we plan are the things that are priority. So, and it goes both ways. If it doesn't really become a priority, it's because we haven't planned for it. Like if we just wait for something to happen, it won't. Like it'll constantly be a tyranny of the urgent, and we'll go all over the place. But yeah, I think that's really a good point. To plan for success is even good when we're talking about Sabbath, like, or finding joy with other people. Like it has to be thought through.
Yeah.
I think about the other benefit of like when you invite people into this space that we're calling Sabbath, right? These spaces where it's just, hey, we're enjoying life, we're refueling, we're unplugging from the demand. One of the really cool byproducts is me getting to know the other person better in
Mm.
that space and them getting to know me. I think a lot of recovery groups or communities that are founded in recovery, the only time they show up and spend time together is when they're going through their like could be a workbook or it could be 12 steps, and they never hang out, they never spend time. And so the thrust of their relationship is seen through the lens of the process and not the person. And man, I'll tell you, it's really hard to call somebody up at 2 a.m. when you're feeling tempted or when you've had a relapse and you want to just talk it out. Like, if my only experience of a person is we're going through a workbook together, like, I'm just not going to want to call them. I don't want to go through, yeah, I'm not going to open up the space. But like, if we've had an awesome conversation about our families and we had a meal together or we were out hanging out and golfing or whatever it may be, like, there's going to be a sense of intimacy and closeness and connection that's going to naturally happen in that space. And I love that that happens in those Sabbath spaces, as opposed to, I'm not saying it can't happen if you work together, but it's richer when it's done in joy.
Which is why the extent of our relationship isn't just what you see here that's recorded.
Yeah,
They can actually do hang
yeah.
out offline occasionally.
Those
Not
are top
tonight.
two. I mean, no, I know. We're we're putting family first, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, one more thing we often throw out there today for people because we feel like it's a one more thing, tangible thing, practical thing we can think through, and it kind of touches on both of these previous rhythms, which is milestone markers and Sabbath spaces. Is food, as weird as that may be, there's something again human. It's the way God's designed it. When you can center on a meal and not multitask, not have a TV on, but just let it be people and eating, there is something really beautiful about that, where you're enjoying the gift of good food with somebody else. If that can be a rhythm to to celebrate and to stop and reflect, not to get something done or strategize with your community, but like, hey, we're all getting pizza for no other purpose than to say pizza's really awesome, and let's just catch up. Like, let's just enjoy it. That kind of rhythm will naturally produce some joy. And again, sure, you can tie it in with celebrating a mile marker or cultivating relationship, but just like you said, guarding that space. A meal is that we need to eat. At some point, we need to eat. So why not invite others in that space and let it be a time to unplug? One last thing, and I'll pass it on to you, kind of as we're wrapping up. One conviction that God has given me is a lot of times I like to work through my lunch because I'm so driven by what I need to do and I want to get done by a certain time. But that mid part of my day is so, I found so necessary to stop working, don't multitask, don't shove a sandwich down while you're doing notes or whatever. Uh, Go sit with others and enjoy it and slow down. And it's crazy how life giving that can be to my week, whether I am or I am not doing that. Like I feel the effects in my body and my mind. But yeah, I'll pass it back to you.
No, I think that's good. I think it's just a wise practice to not work while you're eating. Don't eat at your desk. Get up and go literally to another place and sit and eat. But yeah, I mean, I don't anything dramatic to add other than I was just sort of thinking like the reflection of like when we get together in community and we eat a meal. Like think about the picture of that. Like we are saying that we are communally showing up and meeting needs with each other because the body needs to eat. We need fuel, right? And it's like that's a need our body has. So we're going to show up and do that. We're going to share that experience communally and meet a need, which is sort of big picture pulling back going, okay, well, yeah, that's what we're supposed to do. We're also supposed to get our needs met in community, not just our physical bodily hunger needs, but our emotional needs, our relational needs, our spiritual needs. Relational. It's all relational.
I don't know if it applies. I was just thinking of a phrase. Originally, when I started out in recovery, I was in a 12-step. It would be considered like an SA group. I'm trying to find the full phrase, and I can't find it here. Well, here. And so they would end every group saying this. They said, keep coming back. It works if you work it, and work it because you are worth it. I know the word
That's good.
work is used a lot in that phrase, but actually, what the thrust of it was is the keep coming back, right? The community piece. And this is worth it. Like there's something really beautiful and good. And so that's what I would encourage guys is in this journey of work. One, keep coming together, but man, it's worth it because there's some really beautiful stuff. And that those beautiful steps and moments are meant to be the fuel of your entire recovery journey.
Yep.
That's what I would say as a nutshell.
I think that's a great place to end.
Shabbat shalom.
Yes.
Actually, legitly, you know that phrase?
I mean, I've heard it 100 times.
Yeah, but
Peace.
it's like a
Something
greeting
peace.
at the beginning of the Sabbath, which is tonight, Michael. Friday evening.
What are you going to do about it?
Hopefully eat some pizza.
Okay.
Tell my
Good for you.
delivery guy, hey, Shabbat shalom.
Well, I hope he gets it. We pizza Friday night would be our normal pizza night and movie night. Kristen and I are fasting on Fridays in preparation for a trip we're taking in January. But yeah, enjoy your pizza, and I'll enjoy my black coffee and other colored liquids.
Hmm.
Well,
Well, y'all, thanks again for listening.
yeah,
Again, as we say every time, we really want to hear from you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing it. We definitely want you to click that subscribe button. Follow us on Instagram at Mike Camber and at Nick W. Buddha. They're great ways of connecting for us, and we look forward to some new topics coming up really soon.
yeah, for sure. We've got more guests lined up, which we're super excited about. Some colleagues in the field, some local people, and we're going to keep doing that because those seem like they've been so fruitful. And what else I was going to say? Oh yeah, if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, I recognize like how insane it is that we're supposed to say follow like all these other things, but I think it genuinely is helpful. If you thought this was helpful, I think it matters if you leave a review or 5 stars or whatever podcast platform thing that you're on to help other people find the show. And that's our goal. Again, is to help as many people as possible. So help us do that if you found this valuable. And yeah, Nick and I are grateful that you joined us again, and we look forward to doing this again very soon. Catch you on the next episode.